بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله وسلم عليه وعلى من اتبعه بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we'll start with hadith number 34. We'd finished number 33 last time. So hadith 34, this is where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is reported to have said, Wallahi la yu'min, Wallahi la yu'min. By Allah, he is not a believer. By Allah, he is not a believer. It was said, who, O Messenger of Allah? So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, الَّذِي لَا يَأْمَنُ جَارُهُ بَوَائِقَهُ. The one whose neighbor is not safe from his annoyance. Now notice in this hadith how the Prophet ﷺ, he introduced it, or this topic in a unique way. Like it's rarely done in this way, which is to say, Wallahi la yu'min, Wallahi la yu'min. Repeating something by saying someone is not a true believer if they don't do something. So this is getting the attention of the listeners. Instead of just saying that if this is how you should be with somebody else, or don't do this, that itself is very good. Prophet ﷺ does that quite often, but sometimes he varies the technique. So in this one, he is introducing it in a way that it gets every person's attention. It's like when you hear, he's not a believer, he's not a believer, you think, who is it, who is it? So that I can avoid it. And that's how our attitude should be. That whatever follows after this, we don't want to be among them. So then, this hadith is part of a whole heap of hadith and verses that which show that Islam places immense importance in being good to others. There are countless proofs for like all sorts of groups within the community that we need to be good towards. In fact, no one is left out, but some, just by way of example, is like close relatives and distant relatives. And again, these are categories of people that in today's society people don't care too much about, unfortunately. And then you have the poor and the needy. There's a lot in the Quran and Hadith about the fuqara and masakeen, and they also deserve the zakah and so on. The sick people and the elderly and even the children. Okay, there are books that talk about the Prophet ﷺ and how he was with people, that have special chapters on how he was with children. And the society at large as well, how we're supposed to be good with everyone. Now, the topic of today is one subset of this, which is importance of neighbors. So there are many verses and authentic hadith which show that we must be good to our neighbors. Okay, such as the hadith of that we've just taken and that we're studying now, and a hadith, an authentic hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, it's a very scary one. He will not enter paradise whose neighbor is not secure from his wrongful conduct. SubhanAllah, it's a very, very scary hadith. So you might think, I'm a good Muslim, I pray, I give my zakah and things like that. But if you do not pay attention to this, and if you are someone who harms your neighbor, thinking, it's a small matter, or thinking, for example, that person is not Muslim or this or that, those sort of things are not allowed, and you could be in big trouble in the hereafter. So that's why we need to learn Islam as a whole and implement Islam as a whole as well. You can't just concentrate on one or two or three aspects of it. And furthermore, regarding the neighbors, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, interesting hadith, he said, Jibreel alayhi salam kept enjoining good treatment of neighbors, so much that I thought he would make the neighbor an inheritor. Like inheritor is only supposed to be someone who's close, okay? Parents, children, grandchildren, uncles, aunties, and so on. But a neighbor, generally speaking, is not related to you at all, just like they're situated next to you. But the Prophet ﷺ said he felt that Jibreel, he was advising him and joining him with good treatment towards the neighbors so much that he thought a day is going to come when the ruling will come to him to make the neighbor an inheritor. Now it didn't, but this hadith is showing how important it is for us to be good to our neighbors. That's the idea. Okay, just because it didn't end up being that the neighbor is an inheritor, doesn't mean that they have any less importance. Okay, and the neighbor, there are different types of neighbors, so we have to, like, each one has a right overview. So, like, for example, if someone is a neighbor and they're a close relative and they're a Muslim, so then they've got all these multiple rights on you. But if someone is just a neighbor, and even if they're non-Muslim, they're still a neighbor to you, and they have big rights. So we can't belittle anyone. And so if someone is just a relative, for example, even if they're not close to you, they come and they're a different category, but an important category. So this is highlighting the fact that if a neighbor happens to be your relative and a Muslim, then they've got 3 rights upon you. Now, most people have complaints against their neighbors. This is very sad, despite how much importance Islam places on this, and despite also common sense. Common sense telling us to treat each other nicely, to treat each other decently, behave nice towards others, especially to the neighbors. All of that being common sense, plus so important in Islam, we have so many complaints against neighbors. So there are different types of complaints, and I put a few here so that we realize that, we pay attention and make sure that we are not doing any of these to others. So, for example, noise. So late night parties with loud music and so on. So neighbors doing that to each other. Firstly, obviously, in Islam, music is haram, so we shouldn't even be doing that. But even you can't say, for example, Quran is the word of Allah, is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's the best thing there is, and so let me play the Quran really loud where the neighbors are getting disturbed. Again, this is not how we're supposed to be living Islam, or how we're supposed to be doing da'wah to a non-Muslim neighbor. So you can't even play the Quran in such a way that might be causing trouble to them. And some, what do? They leave the rubbish untied so that it flies here and there. And it's kind of like harming the neighbors. It might go to their front door, and it might wreck their front yard or something. And tall trees that stop sunlight. Again, the neighbor is not cutting them. It's clearly very tall. It's clearly causing a problem. Maybe it's even pushing the fence over. You can tell. You can tell. Eventually, over time, it will start bending the fence, and then you're going to have to change the fence. And you're going to think, okay, my neighbor should help me pay for it, but it's not their fault. It's your tree. So we should make sure we do not do this. And many infrequent visitors that you might have that park the car all over the place. So that might harm people from getting in and out of their driveway, or it might be very difficult. So it might not even be completely blocked. That's very bad. But even partially blocked or very difficult to get in, all these you're harming them. And dogs left uncontrolled or barking, all day, all night. This is inconvenience to the neighbors. Now, of course, we should not be having dogs at all, except for the just very few situations. But apart from that, I mean, this gives you an idea of what kind of harm we're talking about. But there's a worse category than all of this, which is, where you don't feel safe leaving your family in the house alone. So you might be going out, let's say, to work or to whatever, and every time you go out, you're feeling, oh no, I don't know what's going to happen to my family. I don't know if they're really going to be safe. I need to keep calling and checking on them, and so on. So that means your neighbor is a horrible person. Or if you were doing this to your neighbor, then you are that horrible person. Okay, so we have to pay attention to these are just examples. Extrapolate to this and make sure you don't do anything to any of your neighbors in any which way whatsoever. Now, this hadith does not mean that the one who is bad towards his neighbor, that he's not a Muslim. Because even though it says, Wallahi la yu'min, Wallahi la mean, the scholars, when they put all the evidences together, they said that it would mean you have a deficiency from the obligatory aspect of the faith, from the Iman, which means you'd be deserving of punishment. You're still a Muslim, but deserving of punishment. Why deserving of punishment, not punished? Because the thing is, there's no guarantee that you'll be punished. Allah might forgive you. As long as you believe Allah might forgive you for whatever sins. But we fear for you, and that's why we try to avoid these things, because then you're incurring Allah's anger. So you'd be deserving of punishment. We have to stay away from anything that has this sort of wording in that hadith. Now, there are different types of dealings that we could have with our neighbors. So you've got one, which is the haram one, which is harming them. So and I gave you some examples of those. So these we should not be doing at all. Then, slightly better than this, well, actually better than this, is like not doing good, but also not harming them. Okay, so this is where you're neutral. You exist, kind of thing, but you're kind of like there, but they've never seen you, they've never seen anything good from you, and they've never seen anything bad from you either. This is not what Islam is encouraging towards. Islam is encouraging towards the third one. So the first one is definitely not allowed, that's haram. Third one is what Islam is encouraging towards, and that's what this hadith is encouraging. Be good with them. So like, for example, giving them food or helping them if you see them like requiring any help. Like they might be outside working or trying to get something heavy out of their car and you happen to be there, take care of them or take care of the house while they're away on holidays. Basically, be such that they can rely upon you in need. Okay, so at least try to be something like that. Now, some of these things you might not be able to do, but there's a number of things that we can. Like, for example, when you're leaving the house in the morning or coming home at night or in the afternoon, whatever, quite often you actually do cross paths with some of your neighbors. Like when you're coming in, they might be leaving, or you're both leaving together, or you're both coming home, or you're putting out the rubbish bin and they're coming home, that sort of stuff. So at least like a simple wave and a hello, hi, that sort of thing, to show, like to get something, a warm relationship going. And to show that you're not hostile towards them, and they can feel safe from you, and so on. So that helps. That helps towards the good behavior that the hadith is talking about, and what Islam wants us to do. Now, what if you have a neighbor that harms you? So you need to have patience, but we're not allowed to harm them back. Remember this. So like, let's say if they threw rubbish in your backyard or something, you can't throw rubbish back in their backyard. Okay. Now, for example, in these Western countries, you got like the VCAT and things like that. You could go to them to try and get the neighbor to stop their annoyances and their harm. But what you're not allowed to do is harm them back. Islam doesn't allow that. Scholars have said this sort of thing. You're not allowed to harm them back. All right. The next hadith. Hadith number 35, this is where the Prophet ﷺ has said, الرجل على دين خليله فلينظر أحدكم من يخالل. A man will follow the way of his close friends, so let one of you look to whom he takes as a close friend. Now, this hadith is highlighting a fact that we all know, which is a person gets impacted by the surroundings, so the places and people. But the hadith is talking about the people aspect of it. Okay, like who you mix with, who you associate with, who you take as a close friend, who you sit with, who you walk around with, who you spend time with, who you are with in your free times, and so on and so forth. That's what it's talking about. Be careful of those, because you will be upon their religion, what they are upon. So the reality is that a person gets attracted to those similar to him or her. So if you're a good person, you're going to get attracted to good people. If you're well-mannered, you're going to get attracted to good people. If you're bad, you're going to get attracted to bad people. Generally, it doesn't cross paths. But sometimes due to necessity, you get close to the opposite side. Like, for example, if you're good, you get exposed to the bad people. Like in universities and schools and work environments, okay, you might get. Now, that's where some of the wrong brushing off can start to happen. Okay, spending more time than that's necessary can lead to you starting to not see them as them or their evil as bad as it is, and so on. You might start to melt, get desensitized towards evil, and so on. So that's why we have to be careful who we get involved with. So yes, it's true, or you might think I'm only going to be attracted towards good people because I'm good, but be careful of situations where you're kind of forced into interacting with others in a way that's extensive, like university degree, many years, school, many years, work as well, long time. and many hours a day. So this sort of thing, be careful, because it might brush off on you. Now, what's the problem with this? So what's the problem of having good friends? What's the good in having good friends, and what's the problem in having bad friends or evil evil companions? So I'm starting off a list with, this is just some ideas that I've got, where results of evil or bad friends. So they will not remind you if you are forgetting obligatory or voluntary deeds, because they don't really care. So even if they're Muslim, if they're evil and bad, they don't care. They're not doing it themselves, so they're not going to remind you. So prayer time might be finishing. Let's say you're at work and you're very busy, and the prayer time is about to finish. You got busy in it, and if you have a good friend, that person might remind you, let's go pray, and then we'll come back and continue. But if you don't have, that person doesn't care about the prayer and won't even care about your prayer either, and other voluntary deeds as well. And on the opposite, they may even encourage you to do haram actions. Because if they don't care, then, they're doing it all the time. They don't see anything wrong with it. They've got to that low level, they don't see anything wrong with it. And some of these people, are even worse, where they actually want others to be like them. So it's not sufficient for them that they're bad, but they want other people to be bad like them as well. So we have to be careful of such people. Another possible outcome is that they may ask you to leave obligatory. So instead of, like, the first one was they're not reminding you, but the third one is like, they might even tell you, look, why are you praying? What's the point? Or why are you making dua? Or why are you fasting? What's the point? We don't need to starve ourselves. What's prayer going to do? Or like, you don't need to pray 5 times, just remember God in your heart, or just pray 2-3 prayers. Okay, so we have to be very careful of this. And such a person, evil friend, will not encourage you to come closer to Allah. How will they? They're not close to Allah. How are they going to encourage you to come close to Allah? They don't even know what it means to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let alone even care about it. And they're not even going or taking steps towards finding out what it is. So they don't even encourage you to do any of those steps. And they'll never be able to benefit you knowledge-wise, because they don't have knowledge. They might have a little bit, like, for example, they might know it's obligated to pray, it's obligated to fast, but beyond that, not much they will know. Because if they did, then most likely they would have implemented it. So they were not going to be able to help you knowledge-wise either. In the subtle things that you might be doing wrong or you might have missed, a good friend, a knowledgeable friend can help you, but an evil or a bad friend cannot help you. Furthermore, they will only love you for some worldly matter, not for the sake of Allah. See, love in this life, we like each other for all sorts of reasons. But the highest and the best reason, the most noble, is the one where you like and love someone because, they're pious, or they worship Allah a lot, they implement what they know, they are God-fearing, and so on. They're very good to the community, they're good to the parents, etc., etc. There could be so many good reasons. But this person will not love you for that, but they'll love you for some worldly reason. Maybe because you've got lots of connections, or maybe because you're rich, or maybe because, you're generous or something, for like that, from a worldly perspective of generous. They might want some financial gain from you. So the minute you lose one of these, okay, you lost your wealth or something, or or they become richer than you, well, that's it. They're not really going to be interested in being too much of a friend with you. And finally, will not make dua for you in your absence, okay? Or their du'as, if at all, will be about worldly stuff. Whereas when it comes to a good person, they'll be making dua for you in your absence, and for good things for you, for Jannah for you, for forgiveness for you, for all these kind of things that will actually benefit you in this life and the hereafter. Now, the opposite of this. So let's say you have good friends. You surround yourselves with pious people. What happens then? What could happen then? So this is the result of having good friends, religious friends, knowledgeable friends, those who implement, those who are God-fearing. So they'll remind you to do good deeds if you forget. Not just obligatory, they'll remind you all sorts of deeds. So of course, if you were to miss a prayer, they'll definitely remind you you're about to miss a prayer, you forgot or something. But that might even remind you of other things. They might remind you, okay, let's pray sunnah as well after your dhuhr prayer at work. And all right, they might say to you, all right, look, we have time, let's finish that dhikr. Many people are not able to do things like that at work. But if you've got good people around you, they'll remind you, they'll do it themselves, they'll remind you, and they'll bring blessings in your life as well. And they'll stop or warn you when you're about to do something wrong. So the first one is taking you towards good deeds and warning you about that. The second one is about if you're going towards something wrong and you're about to slip, they'll stop you. Okay, so this is also very important. Both of these go towards enjoining good and forbidding evil. The first one is enjoining good, and this one is forbidding evil or stopping you from evil. And these are cornerstones aspects of Islam and what a Muslim is supposed to be about. We have to be doing this all the time to each other. And they'll encourage you to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As I mentioned earlier, like with dhikr or something like that. Or, just imagine, compare two of your friends. One says things like, I'll do this tomorrow, all right, I'll see you tomorrow, or I've done this, I did this. And the other one says, I will see you tomorrow, inshallah. I have been able to do this, alhamdulillah. I thank Allah for this blessing. Do you see the difference between the two? One, in their speech, they're encouraging you to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The other speech, it's like everything is about them, centered around them. The life is centered around them, Allah musta'an. And it will encourage you to seek knowledge. So if you're surrounded by not just a person who implements, but someone who's also further than that, who actually gains knowledge and then implements that, that's the correct methodology, so they'll encourage you to gain knowledge as well. So they'll tell you or forward you messages where lectures are happening, where you could go learn more Islam, where you could go learn more about manners, more about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, correcting your prayers and what Ramadan actually means, and so on and so forth. They'll actually encourage you to seek knowledge. They'll forward things to you that are beneficial for you in this life and the hereafter. Whereas other type of friends, the opposite friends, they'll probably forward you stuff, but it's not going to be of this kind at all. I mean, it's barely you're able to call that sort of a benefit worldly benefit, because something that's only purely worldly benefit, I can hardly call that a benefit. But what's a worldly benefit is the one that will help you to get to the hereafter as well. That's an important distinction between these. And will encourage you to perform all sorts of good deeds. So not just your basic ones, all sorts of good deeds. Okay, about reciting the Quran, pondering on the Quran, reading the Quran with the meaning, which many Muslims don't even know what that actually means. Okay, they've never heard of something called reading Quran with meanings. Also, and the dhikr, and then like if you're at work, duha prayer. Most people are not able to pray that. So if you've got someone good and you've got the opportunity and the place in the workplace, they might tell you, let's go pray duha and come back. And duha is a long time. And unfortunately, people still are not able to do it. So they remind you of all sorts of good deeds, and will help you to not even do the doubtful matters. Now, doubtful matters, they may or may not be haram. That's why they're called doubtful. They may be permissible. They may not be permissible. That's why they're doubtful. So they'll help you to not do those, because by nature, by definition, they could turn out to be haram. So it's better for us in our religion for us to avoid doubtful matters. So if you've got someone who knows, imagine someone who knows these things. They're the ones who can actually help you. And the opposite, one who has no idea, could never even help you. They don't even know the major aspects of Islam or follow the major aspects of Islam. So how they can help you with even perfecting your religion beyond that with doubtful matters? And it's important for us to stay away from something like this as well. It gives you a lot of peace of mind when you leave the doubtful matters for the sake of Allah. And that person, such a good friend, Islamic friend, religious friend, will love you for the sake of Allah, as compared with the other one who is loving you for something worldly. Okay, both are love, But this one is a superior love. This is the noble love. This is the one that's actually worthy of being mentioned, being remembered, and that person is worthy of being praised or loving you for the sake of Allah. So they're liking you, or you are doing the same with the others, where it's because they're implementing Islam. They care about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They care about His limits. They fear Him. They hope in Him, and they love Allah, not just by saying, but in actions as well. So then that's the person who will love you for that reason. And finally, they'll make dua for you. They'll make dua for you, and this is, again, an important aspect. We're always telling each other, brother or sister, make dua for me, right? So what hope do you have if you've got like a bad friend that, they're never going to be making any dua, and you've got no hope of even telling them, brother or sister, make dua for me, because they don't actually believe in that. They probably don't even do it in their own life. So how are they going to do anything of that sort for you? Okay, so these are just some that I've put in these slides and the previous slides about what some of the results could be if you have an evil or bad friend, or if you have a good friend. And I'm sure you can think of a lot more, and you can experience it. You probably have been experiencing it in your life. You all know it. So what each of us needs to do is stop right now and take an account of the friends that you have. Not just, okay, a pure colleague, that's a different one. I'm talking about like real friends who you hang around with, who you like to spend time with. Why are you friends with them? What kind of a person are they? Do they fit in this category, or are they the previous category? So think of occasions when you've been with them, or prayer time was about to finish, or something was happening. Did they remind you? Did they not remind you? Did they stop you from this? Did they encourage you to do? Everyone encourages everyone else, but what did they encourage you towards? And everyone warns against things, but what do they warn you against? Everyone likes each other for a reason, but what are they liking you for? And why are you liking them? So pay attention to both of these sides, aspects, okay?